Alright, so I thought I'd put together a little video here to kind of show you how you're going to work through this lab. I know when I talk about it in front of class, sometimes maybe students can't see or I go through too quickly, so this video might help you see a little better. So what you're going to have is an inoculating loop that looks like this. You're also going to have an incinerator. This one is on already. And it's glowing red hot. You can't see it, but it's glowing red hot inside there. Also today you're going to have a plate like this that is already inoculated with some bacteria. And notice how I put this on the table. Right? It is kind of sitting on its top upside down. It's not flipped over like that. If you put them on the table like this, the tendency is for the condensation on the lid to drip down on the auger, and you don't want that. So we always store plates on their lids, or kind of upside down. Also, you've got a couple of broth media here and one slant media, and you might can see we call this a slant because the auger in it is situated at a slant. So just quickly, the way you do aseptic technique is I'm going to take the media. So this is a broth, and it has some bacteria growing in it. First thing I'll do is take my loop and put it in the incinerator for 10 seconds. And what you'll see when you look inside the incinerator is the loop will get glowing red hot. Now I'll remove that, and then I'm going to let it cool for a few seconds. And as it's cooling, I'm going to take my pinky finger and kind of gently twist and remove the lid from this test tube. And notice when I do this, I do not put this lid on the table. It stays in my hand at all times. Right, so I remove the lid, and I'm going to do what's called flaming the top of this tube. It's called flaming because we used to use Bunsen burners and actual open flames. So I remove the lid, and then I'll take the top of the glass tube and put it at the incinerator's opening for about 3 seconds. That heats up the air at the tube, and so nothing can fall down in. Then I just take the loop, and I go down into the broth, right, and just touch it, maybe gently swirl, nothing crazy. Pull it back up. Flame the top again for 3 seconds, and then put my cap back on. And so notice nothing has touched the table yet. Then I can put this broth back in my stand. And so now if I'm going to transfer into a sterile broth, I just grab this sterile broth, again remove the lid, twisting gently, flame it for 3 seconds, take my loop, and just go down inside, touch the broth, maybe swirl it a couple times, come back out, back to the incinerator for 3 seconds, and then replace my cap. Then I can put that right back. Now, again, I haven't put this loop on the table yet because it still has bacteria on it. So I need to make sure I flame it, so put it back in the incinerator for 10 seconds. You should see it glowing red hot, and then remove it. Right? And so it is sufficiently sterilized now. And so you use that technique if you're going from a broth into another broth. You would also be going from an inoculated slant like this one is, into some other tube, and you would just do that the same way, right? So you gently remove the tube, you flame it, you take your loop and go down inside, grab some bacteria, flame again, put your cap back on, right? And then you would go down in. So if you had a sterile slant, right? So gently remove the cap, flame it, go down inside. The difference with putting the bacteria in the slant is when I go down into the slant, I try to go as far down to the bottom as I can, right? Touch, and then kind of try to zigzag back up so you can put it on the actual auger, right? But flame the loop, or flame the lid, put your cap back on. And that's how you do those. So you want to make sure you flame your lids before and after. So you take the lid off, flame it. Before you put the lid back on, you flame it. You want to make sure you sterilize your loop before it touches anything else, any part of the table. The one difference here is if you're doing something like using a plate, right? So these plates, obviously, and there's a gnat flying around. These plates, you can't flame the top of these like you can a tube. So you have to be really quick and efficient whenever you're working from a plate. So if I'm gonna take some bacteria from a plate and put it into a tube, maybe, here's how I would do it. So I would flame my loop, right? So 10 seconds. We'll pretend like that's 10 seconds for the sake of time. And so notice how I do this. I'm gonna take this plate, I'm gonna pick it up quickly, I'm gonna touch some bacteria and put it straight back down, right? That fast. Notice I didn't pick the plate up, right, and hold it here and talk to my friend and do a bunch of other whatever, and then take some bacteria and put it down. When you pick this plate up and turn it over, you expose it to the environment, you run the risk of contaminating. So all you do is pick it up, grab some bacteria, straight back down, that quickly. Right, and then I can take this bacteria, grab this broth, right, remove the lid, flame for 3 seconds, go down in the broth, flame for 3 seconds, put my lid back on, and then flame loop till it's glowing red hot for about 10 seconds. And there's that. Now another thing we have to do when we store plates is we have to wrap them in something called parafilm, which looks a little bit like this. So what you'll notice is parafilm kind of comes in two parts. It comes in a paper part and kind of a waxy part. This is not the part you want. You want this. So the way this works is you take your plate, I kind of hold it between my fingers like this, you put the parafilm on as if you're going to tape it, and then the parafilm will stretch. And so then you just wrap it around the plate like so. And then it'll stick to itself, and then that keeps the lid and the plate together. The other thing I want you to do is to label things so that you know what's yours and what's not. The way you label media is to label the tube or the plate wherever the actual specimen is. And so what do I mean by that? Well, if I pick up this slant, right, when I label it, I want to write on the tube itself, right, because that's where the media is. If I label this slant on the lid, and this lid comes off with a bunch of others, then I have no way of knowing what's in here, right? If the lid comes off and I've labeled the actual glass, then I still know what's inside. Right. Same thing with a plate. Let me remove the parafilm just to kind of give you an example. So here's a plate. If I label the top of the plate, this lid, right, and it comes off, then I've got no way of knowing what's in here. Right? If I label the bottom of the plate, like I've done here, just with an E, and the plate, the bottom falls off, then I still know what this is. Right? So you always want to label, and with plates, label around the edge, don't label across the middle. It doesn't really matter with the tubes, but with a plate, label around the edge so you can still see the middle of the plate itself. And that's aseptic technique. You make sure you wear gloves. You try to use aseptic technique to prevent from contaminating the environment. You don't want to contaminate yourself, obviously, but you also don't want to contaminate your cultures. Right? I want to make sure this stays a sterile culture, or an isolated culture of an individual species. And if I use aseptic technique, then I can help ensure that.